This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome everyone to the top chart setup video for today, August 5th, 2020. Starting off with ROKU, which reported following the close and saw an initial pop higher up to right around 179, but has since reversed back down and is pretty much flat on the after hour session now. So despite that pop higher and what could be something that it doesn't print during regular trading hours if it stays down here going into tomorrow's open. In my opinion, it still hasn't changed the expectation that more of a wave 2 pullback can be seen with the move into the recent high, and even if you were to count the after hours action as well, still potentially wave B of an expanded flat and the potential to reverse back down in wave C of that expanded flat. If, as an alternative, price does muster up strength again going into tomorrow's open, maybe prints that during regular trading hours and continues to push higher, then we're likely dealing with a more muted C wave off of the June low, where this is 1, 2. Next high would complete wave 3, and it would be followed by a 4 and 5, and then that could be an even larger A wave here as part of the fifth of our bigger diagonal structure. Personally, I still lean toward the 1-2 here and set up for more of a C wave down in that wave 2, but we'll see how price reacts following the open tomorrow. Next chart that I wanted to take a look at is EverQuote, EVER, which is part of our Stockwaves 300 list and is now entering into target support for the corrective pullback here is wave 2. So just touching the upper end of that support so far, enough, and as well as the 200-day moving average, enough to consider wave 2 completing, but no evidence of that yet, and has room to still stretch a little bit deeper into the target support if needed. 36.31, next support is a 50% retracement, and even as low as 31.90, as the 618 would be possible to reach before completing this pullback as wave 2. The bounce that we got following the open today does look a little bit like a fourth of that C. So if in a fifth, again, that can take us a little bit deeper, but certainly one to keep an eye on, and even worth attempting an initial starter position here if interested, with the intention of adding if it does dip deeper into that target support. Next chart that I wanted to take a look at today is Lightbridge LTBR. So for those of you who did take a position when price entered into the target support back in July, we got that nice initial move to the upside since, which easily allows for us to consider that the July low is where wave 2 completed. Personally, I would prefer that if that is the case, we get one more local high here as a fifth wave of wave 1 before another consolidation is wave 2. I think that would just be a little bit more convincing of a 5-wave structure to the upside off of that July low, and further reduce the probability of the red count as wave B of a wider flat. Technically it is possible to count the wave 1 high already in place, and this maybe as wave 2 flat filling out, but again, I just think odds will be a little bit better if we did get one more marginally higher high that this is not a B wave as part of the wider flat in red. Next up is Planet Fitness, PLNT. Another chart similar to EverQuote that is dipping into the upper end of target support for the expected pullback here off of the June high as a wave 2, but with no indication of a local bottom in place, and certainly could still try to stretch deeper into that target support with 50% retracement at 43.77, and then the 618 at the lower end of the target support at 37.90. So just another one to keep an eye on, and if interested, you can start layering into the position with the intention of adding if it continues to push deeper into our target support. But otherwise, if you want to play it more conservatively, we wait for an indication of bottom, micro 5 waves up, and then look for an entry after that point. Moving on to MRNA, which reported earnings and saw an initial drop to the downside here. It's so far still holding above last week's low, which I view as important support, and maybe a micro leading diagonal off of today's low. So it still potentially can hold, sorry, this was actually Monday's low, not last week's low. It still can hold Monday's low and attempt to continue higher from here as wave C of A. Breaking below Monday's low doesn't invalidate this as a B wave. It could try to hold, for example, the 764 retracement at 70.27 and get a stick safe from there, but I think reduces those probabilities a lot more that we will hold and increases the potential of the bearish count there in red and heading down in a C wave. So if you want a very tight stop on the setup, you can use Monday's low. If you want to give it a little bit more room, you keep it at the July low, the late July low. Moving on to WIN. Also reported not much of a reaction today, kind of still just holding above the prior lows that we saw both earlier at the end of July, at the beginning of July, and then at the end of June. So until we see a sustained break below those lows, it is still possible to consolidate longer in a wave two, maybe even try for a wider flat back up to 76 or 80. Still is the 382 to 618 retracement as resistance. But the chart overall, the setup for further downside still looks very much intact and still expect to see, even if we got that wider flat as the wave two, price to then roll over and continue to the downside in wave three of C. And easily could happen from here. Again, just need the break below those prior lows. Let's take a look at LVS just for comparison's sake. Pretty similar situation here. If we get a nice sustained break below the recent lows, we can assume wave C of 3 filling out. Until then, wider flat still technically possible without jeopardizing the overall bearish expectation here. So could try for 45.50 to 47.30 still as the 382 to 618 retracement one more time as that wider flat. But otherwise, again, expectation remains for the downside in wave C of 3 next. On to Disney, another recent earnings report, which saw a very favorable move to the upside. So following expectations very nicely, we had a decent spot to add to the position when it pulled back into the uptrend line support and the 618 retracement right before earnings. And this should now be the wave C of 5 filling out, which ideally still sees more upside from here before completing the ideal minimum target being that 1236 at 135.88. Would need to, at the very least, break back below this gap support to consider maybe that wave C of 5 has already finished. So if, for example, you added to the position on this pullback here into the July 29th low, maybe you want to take profit on that portion if it does reach 135.88 while still maintaining an overall core. But larger degree expectation is bullish if you just want to continue to hold, especially if you had an entry at lower levels, for example, at this wave 4, or maybe even back earlier in March or April. We will expect a wave 2 to follow, a fifth wave up here. But again, large degree expectation is that we still have a lot higher to go in this cycle wave 5. And then finally, wanted to take a look at Momo as well today, which saw a nice strong move to the upside. And we have basically gone over the fact that although we got a deeper than ideal pullback into the recent July low, it still held above the previous June low and therefore was still valid as the potential 1-2 start off of that June low. And this more recent strength that we're seeing is making that potential more likely that this is a reattempted start to the wave 3. To me, it looks still like just 3 waves up off of the July low so far. So if this is indeed, again, reattempting the wave 3, and this is wave 1 of 3 currently filling out, ideally needs at least another micro 4th and 5th wave into that 618 extension at 2079. Maybe it gets as high as 764 at 2166 before wave 1 of 3 completes, but kind of in that region, ideally 5 up into that as wave 1, consolidate from there into wave 2, and then continue to the upside from there. All right, so that is all I had for you guys today. See you again next time.